Well, it appears Restore the Snyderverse movement has been underway. It came back from a dormant stage and now appears to be in full force for the past, I don't know, maybe even like a month or so, a couple of weeks or what have you. Spurred on is for the fandom anyway, where these images that Zack Snyder would tease on Instagram from his days of shooting Batman versus Superman, Man of Steel, and Justice League. So the black and white portraits he took of Ben Affleck as Batman, Cavill as Superman, Jason Momoa, and Joe Manganiello, and even Jared Leto as the Joker. That sort of thing in these black and white images. The very thing he did during the Release the Snyder Cut movement, where he would tease these stills from his version of the film. And they were all black and white and all this sort of thing. And, of course, that movement ultimately proved very fruitful. The film got released for HBO Max. And then there was a lot of hope that, he'll get a shot to do the follow-up films for Justice League. It'd be Justice League 2 and 3. And alas, that did not occur. I guess the numbers for the release of Justice League didn't quite overwhelm Warner Brothers. Since there was a huge contingent there that had no interest in ever releasing that thing, and were very much at odds with Snyder, and that whole story, was playing out. But Warner Brothers was a company that kept getting sold. So once again, you had Zaslav comes in from Discovery, and even then, most certainly, if not outright expected it, certainly thought it was likely that he was there to get everything in order, try to polish what he could there, and then sell it, which is exactly what he did. And this is what is underway. And apparently, as I'm taping this in November, they want it done before Christmas. And it may even happen next week. I don't know, as things have played out for the bidding war that he wanted. And that occurred. And there's several suitors coming in. It seemed that Paramount was in the lead. Now Comcast is in play, so on and so forth. So it's been an interesting thing to watch. But it's an element that it's, so would the Snyderverse return? Initially, I thought probably not, because one of the big factors is so much time has gone by, and it's unfortunate, but and you can still make the narrative workable. It's just that you acknowledge that time has passed, but from the Justice League movie into your next Justice League movie or what have you. And ultimately, maybe some of the characters are going to have to be recast. So, but, it wasn't completely ridiculous to suggest that something of that nature could occur. It just seems, they passed on it to begin with. Well, the factors there would involve the amount of money that would be necessary to fund a continuation with those actors in place. Whereas it was cheaper to do James Gunn's Superman because his new Superman doesn't cost as much as Henry Cavill's Superman. And that was borne out by the pay scale of the actors involved. And Nicholas Hoult was the highest paid actor. Well, he's a veteran movie actor, so he's at that level and that sort of thing. Whereas Corn Sweat wasn't, so he didn't cost as much. So that makes, okay, see what you can do. And so he did. Now, if Superman had blown everything out and had been this $1 billion movie and everything, this would be a different situation. It didn't. I've always said that I thought Superman had to be a great Superman movie. It couldn't just be good. It couldn't just be okay. And basically, I think it was just kind of okay for, people who saw it. I mean, not a lot of people turned out and this sort of thing. And then Gunn follows that with Peacemaker season 2, and oh boy, this, there's blood in the water. So when the announcement came, it's like, it looked like Paramount would get it or whatever. Then the story was, Gunn's probably out when they go there. And Gunn's already no longer talks about his Gods and Monsters Chapter 1 of the DCU or anything, and now it's just his Superman family saga, which probably concludes with Man of Tomorrow. So there you are, but that would seem you come in, you scrap all that, and then you have yet another DC Universe approach with yet another Superman. Probably would not be David Cornsweet. It's too bad. I thought he did a good job as Superman, but I've liked pretty much all the actors playing Superman in recent years. But the situations surrounding those productions ruined it for them. So anyway, it didn't seal the deal. So now I don't know what metrics any entities could be looking at, but right now it's looking like they're going to do some sort of continuation of it. Does it just mean the 2 Justice League movies? Maybe that's the deal. But we just have to wait and see how this unfolds. So there's been multiple articles. I follow Cosmic Book News a lot. Who basically curates all of this, but has actual direct sources as well. And this is the latest one as I am taping, hearing that Henry Cavill is back as Superman, Ben Affleck a possibility, Batman, and Snyderverse updates. So there you go. With Cavill, see, both of these actors in particular got screwed over by the shenanigans of the DCEU. Of course, in Affleck's case, he had his own personal troubles, but on top of that, compounded was the absurdities that went on with the production of Justice League and everything. It just really burned him out completely, and he gave up on his own Batman movie that he was working on, and that went over to be The Batman with Pattinson and Matt Reeves and all that. And then they get him to come back because they were saying, you know what, we're going to fix this up. We're going to reset everything. We'll use the Flash movie to do it. And we've got this idea for your Batman to do a Batman movie, and he's in the multiverse or something of that nature was supposed to occur. And so Affleck says, all right, he comes in. They scrapped their original plans for the Flash movie, which was to introduce Michael Keaton as the Bruce Wayne of the DCEU going forward after the changes, and basically Batgirl would be introduced as the main Bat hero, and Bruce Wayne is kind of, he's old and retired, but being a mentor figure to the Justice League and so on and so forth. And Supergirl would replace Superman and all that. Then they, scrap that. And they got Ben Affleck back in. He shot scenes for the Aquaman movie. Momoa revealed that, and they scrapped the Michael Keaton scenes that were shot for the Aquaman movie and put Ben Affleck in there. And there were in-credit scenes for the Flash movie of Ben Affleck sending a message to Barry Allen that he's trapped in another universe or what have you, this sort of thing. And that was the continuation. And then Henry Cavill would show up with Sasha Calle. They paid him. They shot the scene, apparently. I didn't even know if they'd shot it or not, but he wasn't just Black Adam. He was going to appear next to her, and they would establish he's back as Superman and continue with Man of Steel 2. Both of them got screwed over. They had Henry Cavill go out and announce that, yes, he's back as Superman, and we're going to make a Man of Steel 2. Then less than a month or a month later, nah, never mind. So for him to come back, I would think part of this deal would be a Man of Steel 2, along with him participating in Justice League movies. So if this is the case for Affleck, really the only one who could talk him into coming back would be Zack Snyder, because he's openly talked about it. He generally has a real friendship with Snyder and likes working with him and all that sort of thing. And I'm sure they both feel like they got screwed, repeatedly. And he's very sympathetic to that. So, the latest update on all this from Cosmic Book News is I have an update on the return of the Snyderverse and what I'm hearing from my insiders. Before getting into it, here's the current situation. Variety reported that the Saudis are teaming with Paramount for a full WBD takeover, shortly after Paramount publicly declined the report. So no matter how this turns out, the bottom line stays the same. The Saudis want Zack Snyder back, and they want the Snyderverse restored. If the Saudis back Paramount and win, Snyder wins. If they back Comcast and win, Snyder still wins. Either way, Snyder comes out ahead. As, Matt McCloy tweeted, the wild card is President Donald Trump, who has been reported to be backing Skydance Paramount. While Trump is said to dislike Comcast's CEO, my insiders point out that Comcast positioned itself for a WBD bid by creating a separate company to dump the networks Trump hates. CNN. The Comcast network, MSNBC, and that, which is now MS Now, whatever. But they would dump that. CNN comes with WB, so I guess they could dump that too. So anyway, that issue may not stop anything. It's also out of the antitrust business of having, you can only have one cable network and that sort of thing. But splitting it off into a separate company could resolve the issue, which is exactly what Warner Brothers' plan, which is underway. Now, a sale could change that. And it's just like Paramount was offering to buy the whole shebang rather than just the production studio and the streaming service. Whereas the cable entities go off into Discovery Global, and Warner Brothers is separate from that. So, looks like Comcast would do the same thing. And so they dump the cable entity and then take on Warner Brothers. So anyway, continues, my insiders told me Zach knows exactly what is going on with Trump. And that's why Zach posted the Henry Cavill Superman image on Veterans Day. So it was, this one. But, or maybe it was just because it's Veterans Day, but he wants to be in good with the crowd that is dependent on this. So here he goes. Update. The White House just announced a massive deal worth $600 million with the Saudis after a meeting with Trump. Well, the Saudis have his ear. So if they're saying, hey, look, we would really like to get in on Warner Brothers. So it's like, okay, but if you make a deal with Paramount, we're good. Maybe that's how it goes. We're like, all right. So, Paramount has tried several times, at least 3, I believe, offers to buy Warner Brothers. They were up first to go for it, and Zaslav turned them down. Well, if the Saudis come in they can raise the offer. It's an offer Zaslav can't refuse. The amount of money, of course. And so that's the deal. Paramount was always the front runner in this. But yeah, when the sugar daddy shows up, that changes everything. So if the Snyderverse truly comes back, that means the actors return to the roles. Well, McCloy's told Henry Cavill is back as Superman. Gal Gadot is back as Wonder Woman. Jason Momoa will be back as Aquaman. Ray Fisher will be back as Cyborg. Yeah, and I think the idea that Zack Snyder's in charge, pretty much they've all spoke very fondly and highly of Zack Snyder. Ezra Miller as the Flash, I'm told doubtful, and that's because of Ezra's own scandalous problems. Yeah. So, probably won't be there. Plus, look, Snyder likes the guy, but he is just so miscast, So, that one will probably be recast. Will Batman be recast? Well, the biggest unknown is Ben Affleck. If you follow the last decade of drama, he's been burned multiple times, including being cut from the real ending of The Flash. As his insiders say, Affleck possibly returns as Batman, but warn, it's a lot of work physically. And that's one of the things. This has just been delayed and interrupted so many times. A lot of years have gone by. And you're asking this guy to, obviously, a stunt double does a lot of the physicality for it, but he's much older than he was from Batman versus Superman, where he had that cool warehouse fight, to save Martha Kent and all that. And he's probably not up for that anymore. So it's going to have to be a lot of stunt double doing that kind of thing. CGI Affleck's face his chin on the bat mask. And, I guess you're good to go there. Or it may be they got to recast it, and if they give him a Batman movie, then he can direct it, I suppose. But for the continuity and everything, it would be better to have the original cast back in place. But anybody else doing this besides Zack Snyder, it would be a no, I think. So it's possible, yes, he could talk him into doing this. So he's told the plan is for Snyder to finish his Snyderverse, which would be the two Justice League films. I'm told the Saudi WBD deal has been in the works for some time. It's also the reason Zaslav passed on Paramount's earlier bids 3 times. Because he knew this was waiting. Well, let me wait and see what they're going to offer, Zack is close with the Saudis, and they want his storyline back to rival Marvel in the upcoming Avengers films. Well, good Lord, they really got to hit the ground running, because the Marvel's, they've shot the movie, but they're going to reshoot it to death too. So. But there's no way you're going to have a Justice League movie out near, within the vicinity of Doomsday. That's no. Sounds like they're aiming straight at Disney. They are, because this also involves their desires for theme parks and this sort of thing. And that's why the Comcast thing. So, getting the IP out of, and they're going to want Lord of the Rings. They're going to want Harry Potter. It's not just DC. So this thing of partnering with Paramount to achieve that, but Paramount's not in the theme park business, but Universal is. So, but I guess investments there and licensing deals, they could work that out where those IPs are readily available to make rides and elements of the park, and they could do that. And so that's how you take on Disney. It's not just the movies. You got to have this theme park business going, maybe even a cruise line. I don't know. And the movies become advertisements for the parks and that kind of thing. So, but it's interesting if there's like, look, we're determined to get this IP. If we have to partner with Paramount instead, we'll do it. But then I'm like, well, but how do you work out the parks? But I guess it could be as simple as that. Well, we're invested in both, So after Snyder completes his arc, he's told DC will reboot again. Right. Which was always the plan. Had they stayed on course, this would have already happened. Maybe even David Cornsweet would be your new Superman after Cavill had done his Superman. And it would have already been underway. And apparently, like, Reverse Flash was going to be revealed to have basically created the DCEU through his time travel shenanigans, which would explain why the Flash is so messed up and he acts like Ezra Miller. And then you do the Flash time travel movie, and that's it. The universe reboots. It's all different. It's recast, and so on. Mimicking the, restarts, resets, reboots that the comics have done. These many years. So, and it would be a means by which, look, your actors are aging out of the roles. Now you can replace them with new, younger actors, and so on. So there you go. Likely under Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy. Right. Which, again, they were the ones wanting Henry Cavill back as Superman and did that. Then Zaslav stopped that, put Gunn in charge, and said, no, we can't afford to pay that amount. We got to go cheaper. And I got this Marvel guy. He can do it. Well. So, regarding James Gunn and the DCU, he's told that if Paramount and the Saudis are indeed teaming up, James Gunn's DCU is toast, and Gunn will be forced out due to Gunn's divisive politics. Gunn, the head of DC Studios, posted and said nothing on Veterans Day. Well, okay, his politics doesn't help, and it's more in Peacemaker than it is in Superman, but nevertheless, it's the performance. It didn't do well. It needed to do massively well. That's the position they were in. That's not really James Gunn's fault. It's the circumstances. But he couldn't seal the deal. He couldn't do it. So, but keeping him around as a talent to work on something else, I think if they could have gotten the Jason Momoa Lobo, which I still think they do. I don't care if he is playing Aquaman. And James Gunn directing that, I think you got a hit on your hands. That's more in line with Gunn's personality. So he says he's also been told that Gunn's Man of Tomorrow is just the original plans for Man of Steel 2 with Ray. Yes, I think that's yes. Yeah, the same thing with Lanterns. Where you got Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan being a buddy cop thing, where Hal Jordan's older, more established, and Jon Stewart is the rookie. There was talk of that for a very long time. There was supposed to be a movie apparently starring Tom Cruise as Hal Jordan, and that would have been the DCEU Green Lantern movie. Either Hal Jordan dies at the end or he disappears. Probably more he disappeared because in the release of the plot points and outlines for Zack Snyder's Justice League movies was the Jon Stewart, even though in the Jim Lee drawings for it looks like Hal Jordan. But he said it was going to be Jon Stewart. He would show up searching for Hal Jordan. He's looking for Hal Jordan. Plus, he indicates that the whole damn galaxy or universe or whatever is in a mess because of Darkseid's victory, having achieved the anti-life equation. And, of course, the Earth is, all wasted and devastated by the Darkseid's conquest of it. And Superman's been turned evil and all this sort of thing. And then Batman's got to make his time travel plot work with the Flash. So John Stewart shows up and becomes the Green Lantern of the Justice League for this final push to win the time warp strategy, what have you. And he would have been introduced at the end of Justice League, the first film, which Zach did shoot with the actor Carr was his name. I'm forgetting his first name. But Warner Brothers said, "No, we got our own plans we don't want that." Okay, so he couldn't keep it in the film. But then by the third Justice League film, that guy shows up, and to work it out the way it's supposed to be was Green Lantern gets his own film, and that story is told, and the crime buddy thing would take place in outer space. Well, to make it cheaper, it's going to take place in Middle America with the Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart they have for the Lanterns HBO Max show. They said, no, there's a lot of space stuff in it. I'm sure, yes. But primarily, it's going to take place in a small town. But for a major movie, yeah, that would be more expensive and bigger budget and all that sort of stuff. And, well, that got scrapped. And that was always the overall problem with DCEU. To be a rival to Marvel, Marvel built their MCU off of movies that were connected. They come together in the Avengers, but they were their own separate films. So all you got was Man of Steel, and then you go immediately into Batman versus Superman. You really shouldn't have done it. A Batman versus Superman movie would be fine, but you needed a Batman movie to establish your DCEU Batman. You needed a Wonder Woman movie to establish her. That Wonder Woman movie was really one of the brighter spots of the whole thing, and that would have been fine, to see that before. It kind of fits as a companion to Batman versus Superman because you get some of the nods there about it, and Bruce Wayne discovering Wonder Woman's not all she appears and all that, or Diana rather. Yeah, okay, but you really need it. So I suppose either way you could have done it, but just to suddenly throw in the Justice League like that, it doesn't work quite the same way. And then you kill Superman. Of course, it sets up his resurrection in the Justice League and all that, but okay. But there was few and far between there. So you go forward, after that, and you can have your other characters, Aquaman and the Flash, get established, and then they meet up in Justice League. That would have been a better way of familiarizing the audience with them overall, because you're essentially putting a television series in the theater. So the movies have to stand on their own to a point. This is true. You have to keep it that way. But there is that cohesion that can only be established by multiple films. Hence the shared universe. For whatever reason, not whatever reason, they were trying to catch up. They were desperately trying to catch up. They'd sat around. DC was owned by a movie studio, Warner Brothers. They could have done this sort of thing. In fact, there was talks of that for years. We're going to do these movies that cross over in the shared universe. Never did anything with it. Here comes little Marvel out of bankruptcy, forms its own movie studio. Makes money off, of course, licensing off their big stars, Spider-Man, X-Men. Then they make their money off of the Blade movies that builds up their studio to make it for Iron Man, and there they go. And it dominated Hollywood for 10 years, whereas Warner Brothers sat on its ass. They made Batman movies, who's their biggest star, sure, but it just... They didn't understand this, and then they come to it late. And then kept screwing up. The biggest lesson about Zack Snyder's Justice League is 11th hour changes. You got to decide that at the script stage. You can't do that after the fact. But they did. And of course, Marvel didn't learn it either, because they reshoot everything to death to where it's impossible to make their money back. Anyway, so there you go. He's told that if Comcast Universal ends up buying WBD, there's a real chance Gunn could actually team with Zack Snyder for the Snyderverse return. His insiders say one idea being floated is Gunn writing the Justice League 2 script with Chris Terrio already having a treatment and Snyder directing. It would be a full circle moment since Gunn and Snyder both got their starts at Universal with Dawn of the Dead. That's a great film they did. It's really good. In fact, it's a damn shame that Gunn wasn't his partner on Army of the Dead. That's another thing is like, since then, that Snyder has done Army of the Dead and Rebel Moon. They're terrible. They look cool, you know, especially Army of the Dead. It's amazing what Snyder did with that. But story-wise, and it's got, right off the bat, it has this massive plot hole in it. I'm just like, really? And then Rebel Moon, oh my goodness. And of course, you really got to rein that in, Zach. Come on. I mean, he did 2 Rebel Moon movies. It's Rebel Moon, the movie. No. He probably should have organized it as a series, but even that, I'm like, But the plot points of Justice League are pretty sound. You get rid of that business of Batman impregnating Lois Lane. We're good. Everything else can pretty much stay in play. Now, I'm sure they'll change things around, and because otherwise, hey, it's already spoiled. But ultimately, you know, defeating Darkseid becomes the ultimate outcome, you know. And then the Flash changes time. This time again. And then you reboot. And you get David Cornswood to dust off his cape, and then you get to be Superman again. You know, maybe. They may change it into a Crisis on Infinite Earth situation where they cross over the two DCUs. The one thing that bothers me about this Man of Tomorrow, and Man of Tomorrow would have been a great title for Man of Steel 2. Maybe it was going to be that. I don't know. But for Superman versus Brainiac, long overdue. And the cool way, this was never said or anything, it's just my, you know, headcanon or whatnot, was to have Henry Cavill do Man of Tomorrow, Superman versus Brainiac. And the Brainiac comes to steal Metropolis. Shrink it down, put it in a bottle. Superman saves it. He gets help from Supergirl, who would have been, I guess that would be Sasha Calle. He was supposed to appear with her at the end of the Flash movie. You establish that. Thanks to Zack Snyder's Justice League, Lois is pregnant with his baby. She's had the baby. Supergirl is kind of like the babysitter. You know, you can have this little family that Superman has established pretty early on. Brainiac appears. Superman is completely caught off guard, but Supergirl knows who that is, and that gives her a cool plot to play here as well, and that she was on Krypton when Kandor was taken by Brainiac. They could even toss in, I don't know if Michael Shannon would be up for it, to do a cameo as Zod witnessing his hometown being stolen, and that's one of the things that really pushes him to revolt against the ruling council and stuff. You could tie it into that. But nevertheless, anyway, so she fills in Kal-El on what this is about, and they go to save Metropolis. Lois is trapped in it with the baby and all that, and ultimately Superman's victorious. He defeats Brainiac, but at the end you give it a sinister little coda in which Brainiac says, "You've doomed humanity. I was here to save something of it. Now they're doomed." And Superman's like, "What are you talking about? You're beaten. I beat you." You know, and he says, "Yeah, not me. You know, that's why I knew Krypton was doomed. That's why I took Kandor. You know, I'm saving these samples for posterity." That's what he does. And Earth is doomed, not because of me, but because he's coming. So who's he? Well, and by then Superman would probably realize what he's talking about, because he's aware of the threat of Darkseid, but they don't know when he's coming or whatnot. But now it's really, he's really on the cusp of arriving, and Brainiac knows this and comes in to take Metropolis and leave because the Earth is doomed. And then you go into Justice League. So, he contacts Batman, and they're like, oh, crap. So then the Justice League 2 is Lex Luthor trying to solve the anti-life equation, that whole thing, and Darkseid appears, and they get their asses handed to them. Justice League 3, the Earth is dominated by the parademons and evil Superman and all that. So there you go. It plays out like that, and that would have been a great Man of Steel plot. And you get Henry Cavill playing classic Superman in that element, being Clark Kent at the Daily Planet and all this sort of stuff. You got Supergirl in there. He's raising his child with Lois, and then, oh crap, here comes the big bad, but he wins. But then, damn it, for David Cornsweet's Superman, it doesn't really work out quite that way. Now, he does have a Supergirl who's probably going to be there to tell him, oh my God, it's Brainiac. Oh man, he's really tough, and that sort of thing. So it could play out sort of like that. But oh man, that would have been awesome for a Henry Cavill Superman movie. So with Gunn hurrying up and doing this plot that he stole, probably scuttles that iteration to where Man of Steel 2 would be something else. But my guess is Henry Cavill really wants a Man of Steel 2, and to get him to come back while he's setting up all kinds of other, Highlander, his Warhammer thing for Amazon. Amazon really, it sounds like they're not going to cast him as James Bond. They really should have done that. Had they locked him into that, I don't know. He might not be available for Snyderverse or anything like that. But what have you. But to get him to agree to that after being screwed just about as bad as Batfleck was, so yeah, we're gonna give you Man of Steel 2. That'll be the deal. So he says, okay, I'm on board. That could be the deal. So, will it happen at all? Well, it depends, but that's a lot of money coming out of Saudi Arabia. And that was always the thing. It was the one element that could make this happen. There were rumors at one time that there were Saudis interested in buying Lucasfilm. It didn't happen. But it was the only way that I could see something like that. Oh, they're going to scrap the sequel trilogy and fix it and all that sort of stuff. It would take a massive sugar daddy to change the scenario. Same thing here. So what could possibly, at this late date, restore the Snyderverse? A massive sugar daddy. Maybe it's this guy. Snyder's there because he's involved in a movie that he's doing called Brawler, which is about a UFC fighter and all that. And the Saudis are big in UFC. That's another thing they're investing in and for entertainment and all that. And yeah, he's been working on that movie with their investment. So the relationship is well established. And apparently Saudi Arabia's got Snyderverse fans to want to get Warner Brothers along with Harry Potter as well. So, and the film rights to Lord of the Rings and so on. So there you go. And theme parks galore. And they got the bucks to beat this out. And if they have to go through Paramount to do it, then they can do that too. You split up the companies, you still have your theme park involvement, you can kind of straddle the two entities. As far as it would be better, I imagine, for them to do it through one company and have it all sewn up. But I mean, they're going forward with it. They're going to build their parks, damn it. It's just a matter of the IP they could have in total, rather than just, paying a license fee and that type of thing. So that's what makes this believable. There really isn't anything else. Metrics-wise, well, Zack Snyder's films perform better than James Gunn's did. I guess that wins out too. And that there's still a fan base there, but previous people weren't all that wowed by it, But nevertheless, you got a massive sugar daddy here, and that changes everything. So, that could be the deal. Yeah. So anyway, we'll see how this unfolds rather shortly, I imagine, as far as the sale goes and who gets it. And wait and see what their announcements will be on DC. And then, of course, all the rest, So it's cool, I mean, a lot of these failed films are flaws. They stumbled. The woke era did so much damage. It didn't so much touch the DCEU, except later with Birds of Prey and crap like that. But just all of that put together, it's just, God, what a mess. And then maybe this one will be the one that rights its ship. I don't know. But the only real entertainment out of all of that was these corporate soap operas. Star Wars stunk. It was terrible what they did. But man, that corporate soap opera was fascinating. So it's like Dallas or Dynasty, So anyway, you got that entertainment, but not much else out of that era. But well, we'll see what happens. But it's this isn't crazy. This is somewhat likely. So stay tuned.